Hey, welcome back. It's time for another episode of Church Hurts and the good, the bad, and the ugly about church, religion, and spirituality today. With a clash of recovery thrown in along the way. So if you've ever had questions about the church and maybe become a bit jaded in your attitude towards religion, hey, you've come to the right place. Today our show is entitled Children, Agony, and Praise. Proving once again that we're not afraid of a little controversy on this show. So let's get to the man who is our host, former pastor, teacher, and church planter. He's a strategic consultant who's now, well, it's just an aging curmudgeon who never quits asking the one question, the only question on everybody's mind today. Why? Why not bring him in? Dr. John Bash. Welcome, sir.
Thank you, Paul. Children change the matrix. Did you ever notice this? You are in an argument with your husband and it's getting heated. He's being stubborn, won't get your point, keeps saying the same things over and over, about to notch it up one more level on the intensity scale. You hear the unmistakable sound of children's feet approaching. You take a deep breath as you push back your hair and wipe the tears from the corner of your eyes. Children change the matrix. Having started 3 churches, I am well aware that the children-youth dynamic is critical for a balanced church to grow. Young families who may have ignored God for years start asking about the impact this might have on their children. Do they really want their own offspring to grow up with no knowledge of the Bible, no understanding of Christian values, and no connection to the heritage which drove the progress of Western civilization in medicine, science, and the arts? What church shall we try out, dear? She asks her husband. I don't know if I can do that church thing again, he says. Can we put it off a month or so? The Steelers are undefeated, and I don't want to miss the impact on my fantasy football team today. With some movement of the divine in a strange and mysterious way, a family may end up back in church, trying to act casual. The mom and dad navigate the maze and signs to the children's wing. Smaller churches apologizing for not having a program just yet. Everything's awkward, and the service hasn't even started. Will your children or grandchildren know anything about the church you avoid due to your past pain and disappointment? Could kids be an avenue to awakening a deeper desire down in you than any building with walls could contain? Today, we have an expert in kids in church. She sings like an angel, prays like a warrior, is the friend everyone wants, and is just real enough to sneak into church hurts and for the next few moments. Singer, songwriter, Jana Elira, welcome. Jana.
Wow, thank you, John, for that intro. Thank you for having me, and that was quite an intro.
Oh, you're always
I'm
affirming. And
just saying amen.
you were one of my favorite worship leaders years ago, but you decided to pour your whole life into doing Christian music for children. Why?
Well, I honestly must tell you that it was a calling, and I don't use that word lightly. I really don't, because I loved leading worship for grown-ups, and I had a little bit of experience with kids. I was a teacher for a time, but I was a very bad teacher. It was not my calling, but I loved the kids. And I had some experience working with another children's artist named Mary Rice Hopkins, doing like choreography and background vocals. But when I was asked to write a children's song for a particular event at our church, it just absolutely, it was like a hand in a glove. It took me 5 minutes to write the song. I felt passionate about it. The kids responded. And it was really, it was a calling. And then, my husband, Ron, is a producer. And when he started adding all his genius to just the production to make it sound magical, it was really, the Lord just did it. And who would have known that 25 years later, we're still, ministering to children. I really didn't know what I was getting into, John, when we started. I knew worship was important and I knew children were important. But he kind of taught me along the way. My phone dinged. I thought I turned it off, but sorry about that.
I didn't hear it. You know,
But
Janet, church hurts the end. We're uniquely aware that many people had church experiences when growing up, which seemed really irrelevant and boring and hypocritical. But you had a little bit different experience, didn't you?
yeah, I did. I mean, I was not a church kid, so I don't have any scars from, going to something that I didn't enjoy as a kid. I just didn't have much reference for it. We went several times a year, maybe at church or Christmas or Easter or something. But it was when I was in high school that I was introduced to Jesus through Young Life. And my very first church was Willow Creek Community Church, which you're very familiar with, John. And so I was so new to the whole church scene. It was just, to me, I guess parachurch was really my first church, Young Life, and then the youth part of Willow Creek, which was then called Sun City. That was my church. And it was just excited youth who loved the Lord. And I mean, I was radically changed from the inside out when I met Jesus. And it wasn't until years later, many years later, really, that I got involved in church. I went to Willow Creek on Sundays, but it wasn't until years later that I really learned a lot more about what it meant to be in the institution of the church, and in its many forms. Our children's ministry, interestingly, has led us into every denomination you could imagine, John. I mean, we have sung
Hmm.
for Catholic, Lutheran, Assemblies of God, Seventh-day Adventists. I mean, because Jesus is just the common denominator. And I've met wonderful, wonderful people, and we've fellowshipped in all these different churches. Um, but my first experience with Jesus was just so positive that I couldn't imagine there being anything bad about the church. I was just starry-eyed and filled with wonder.
Just for the fun of it, tell me who Dave Holmbo was, because that was a name most people don't know, and yet you were kind of young when this guy was important in what you saw about church, wasn't he?
Yeah, he was, because that was when I was going to Willow Creek, and um, Dave was the music guy. And what they were doing at Willow Creek was so unique, I think, for its time. They were doing contemporary music, and it was so enjoyable and beautiful. And I was just really, I had gone to church with a couple friends and, funerals and things like that. And my imagination of church music was choirs and hymns I didn't know and things like that. And so at Willow Creek, it was songs you knew on the radio, and it was beautifully done and cool. And Dave Hombo was the cool guy who was arranging it all. So I kind of looked at sort of you know,
For our
and I
audience,
loved. Oh, and I went to a.
go ahead.
I'm sorry, I think we're glitching a little bit,
Yeah, you have a little.
John.
We have a delay. That's all right. We can work it out.
Okay.
And it will. And I was just going to say, Dave was so creative. One of the earliest people to say, "I want church to be a place I want to enjoy bringing my friends to. I want them to really hear a message instead of just get all this ritual." So you kind of had that good experience. I want to just rush ahead. We had James Ward on here on Church Hurts and one of the earliest shows talking about the worship wars. And so I'm going to let you get off the hook on that one because I know, but just give me a few sentences. That was hard. How'd you experience that?
I watched that episode with James Ward, and I was really interested in that, and I was definitely on the outskirts of really being involved in that worship wars kind of a thing, but I definitely observed it, and really, it just grieved my heart because what we were doing at our church was so now fast forward many years, my experience at Willow Creek, and I'm involved in a mega church in Southern California. And I was involved in the college ministry, which was really a church within a church. I didn't have much involvement in the big church, but so our little college ministry started this worship night that we called Praise and Worship. And you came to it once, John, when it was outside under the stars, and it kept growing and growing and growing because it was so organic and sweet. And none of us were getting paid. We just loved doing this, and we just spent an hour to 2 hours just worshiping the Lord and sometimes praying. That's it. There was no programming, and hundreds of people started coming to this thing. So um, my experience with a worship leader was really that. And then every once in a while later on, I would maybe be invited in to speak somewhere and do a song. And that's when I would be um, kind of on the stage at the big churches where it felt so tense and pressured. And I heard these stories of, really good worship leaders who were just let go because they were too old or they weren't cool enough. And it had really started this whole vibey, you had to be cool, you had to be young, you had to be really good, a musician to lead people in worship. And my experience was so kind of different than that it just really grieved my heart. It really did, because I thought, you know, worship is when we turn our eyes to Jesus, to the living God, and we're supposed to vanish on the stage. I mean, ideally. I remember seeing some churches where the choir loft was behind all the people. And I thought, that's genius, because then our focus is all on Christ. And somehow we turned that around and it became so, look at me, look at me, look at me, and I just feel like whenever we do that, and, you know, we all have a little bit of guilt in this, because I think it's very difficult to get on the stage and not think about yourself to some extent. You're worried about doing things right. You want to give the Lord your best. You want it to sound good. I mean, there is a mix of that, but the ultimate goal of worship is to lead people to look past you to God. And I think that whole scene where it just became so mixed up with um, labels and professional and looking so cool, and you just had to be cool. I just think it did a lot of damage, to be honest. It was painful.
And certainly the older generation that felt like they were betrayed because they didn't understand this young music anyway. It's like it wasn't their style anymore. What happened to their church? So, but now, so you get into a vibrant, real relationship with Christ. I mean, it was a serious thing in your life. You end up getting married to a man who was a pastor in a megachurch and very successful. Uh, I think your own music ministry was thriving, and yet you had a secret that you had to deal with. Would you tell us about that?
Yeah, I think we've talked about this before, John, that unless you really know how broken you are, you can't understand grace. And I knew how broken I was. From the time that I was 16 till about 28 years old, I was bulimic. And that is usually a very hidden addiction. I see a sisterhood between all addictions. They're all disordered desires. And it was very hidden, and I was super ashamed of it. And there were seasons where I thought I was healed, and it would be a little bit situational, where when I was living with people, it wouldn't kind of be out of control. But then there'd be seasons where I'd be alone a lot, and it just was. I don't even know how to put it into words, and it's been so long for me now since being healed from that it's hard to imagine the amount of time I wasted, the amount of, um, food that I wasted, the guilt, the shame that was all mixed up with me wanting to follow Jesus with all my heart and grow in Him, and just the back and forth of, oh, why do I keep doing this? And it really wasn't until I was 28 years old and I attended a workshop by a guy named Neil Anderson, and I was really just going as a leader I wasn't going for my own addiction. I was going as a church leader. And in that seminar that was several days to a week long, he was teaching on really just the spiritual warfare and the spiritual roots of many addictions and how Satan works in our mind. And I just had never, being a young Christian, I didn't even really, I thought the devil was fake. I just didn't, there was a giant holes in my theology, right? And in my understanding, I just didn't know how he worked. And when that light went on, for me, it doesn't always work this way. I was set free. I knew it. It was like Satan's mask came off, and I recognized him in that circular thought pattern, and the lies, the deception, and then the shame and the guilt and the accusation. I'm like, oh my gosh, I never saw it this way. I was set free, and
Isn't it
I
amazing
drove
the
home
way?
that day.
I was like, isn't it amazing the way? And I want to pick up with you drove home that day, but the way any addiction can get us so conflicted inside because it's not us. And here, on the one hand, you're leading people in worship, you're a leader in the church, people are looking at you, pastor's wife, the whole bit. And yet that other side was real, but it wasn't you, and you had to resolve that, just like people do with every other addiction, right?
Mm-hmm. I
So
mean, it
you
really,
drove home.
it like, I drove home and I wrote in my head, I started writing this song that was very much related to John 8, the truth will set you free. If you abide in me and my words abide in you, you'll know the truth and it will set you free, because it was the truth that set me free. The truth of who I am, the truth of how the enemy works, the truth of Christ's victory over evil, the truth. And I mean, I felt like someone who'd been set free from jail. I could think, I could read the word, I could pray without that constant war going on in my head. It was like I had my life. I mean, he set me free. So I wrote this song called Free Indeed, and then it was just an avalanche of, so that was really at the beginning of,
let's just hear that for a second, will you? Can we hear Free Indeed?
play it?
Yeah, why
Oh
not?
man. Okay, hold on a second. I got to get a guitar
That's
pick.
all right. You're allowed to do that. And then I'm going to bring us up. That's all right. We're allowed to do this. We're informal here.
Wow, you are informal. Oh,
No, you can't have the phone call. I didn't say that.
isn't that wild?
Now, this is Jana's answering machine. And then we're going to get into kids. We're supposed to be about
Obviously,
kids.
I'm in my office.
Yeah, that's all right.
Okay.
I just
Wow, you
remember
caught me
the
off
song.
guard
I
on
want to
this,
hear
but
the songs. I remember it so well.
haven't played this in a while. If you hear my words and I abide in you, you're my disciple. You're my disciple. You will know the truth, and the truth will set you free. Free indeed. Remember this?
Yeah, very
I'm
well.
the
Very
Son
well.
of the Holy One. I defeated Satan's. Oh, you know what? Do you hear my guitar?
Yeah, everything perfect, but I'm going to stop you anyway. Because, so here you are, you're
Okay.
singing, you've dealt with this eating disorder issue, you feel the power of God, you start making babies, so you're this happy mom and pastor's wife, and life just was good, and everything's been great since then, right?
Well, you did put that word agony in there. And
Yeah.
although I don't really like that word agony, because God has been so good to me, in the midst of trial. But my favorite life verse is John 16:33, that says, where Jesus says, I tell you these words so that in me you will have peace. In this life you will have trouble, but take heart because I've overcome the world. And so I've had plenty of trouble.
Tell me about the
But
trouble. So
he
the
has
trouble that hits, go ahead. You're getting ready to have baby
the
number
trouble that
2.
hits, right. So the trouble that hits is that in this perfect world, which actually a lot of people did say, you have the perfect life.
Mhm.
Um, there were there were inklings all along that my then husband was kind of disconnected, but I never thought it was anything that would end. I just thought this is something that we got to work on. But as life was perfect and I was pregnant with our second daughter, it all crashed in when he came in one night and said, "I don't love you anymore. I've never loved you, and I don't want this any of this anymore." And it was over. There was nothing any of us could do to change his mind. It shocked me. It shocked all those college students who looked up to him like, you know, they admired him so much. It was disaster. It was drama. It was scary. It was painful, embarrassing. Um, it was a disaster. It really was. And in the midst of it all, though, the Lord reminded me of his presence and who I really am. Because, we can be so much of that stuff, right? We can think this is me, this house, my life, my job, my ministry, my relationships, my whatever. And when all of that kind of goes away, your dog, your stuff, your all the things that give you comfort, and which it kind of did for me, I really had to say, who am I? Who is
Mhm.
Jana?
You bet.
You know?
You bet. And
And those are
then you skip the good stuff. I mean, you end up, you know, falling in love with your drummer and marrying this amazing man who just adores you, and you keep being the mom and doing family, and now everything's perfect again until a turn came, kind of literally. And I got a phone call, and it was one of those phone calls that basically said Jana's in the hospital. And when you're a pastor, you don't like getting those phone calls.
mm,
And I just heard enough to know, going to see you in the hospital, I had nothing but tears in my eyes all the way down. What had happened to put you in the hospital?
the worst day of my life. um, the day that every parent dreads, the day that every mom has nightmares about, and you're never prepared for, right? You just can't be. Well, I was on my way to go sing at a church, and it was just a beautiful sunny day. We were involved in a car accident, and at the time I had three daughters, and my middle daughter was instantly killed in that car accident. She had just turned 4, and it was such a swirl of, is this really happening? I mean, at first I just didn't know if it was really happening. And then when I realized this is not a nightmare, I can't wake up from this. I can barely find the words to to convey how frightening and yet how comforting God was in the middle of that, the worst the worst thing that could be happening. He was so present in so many ways, in so many people, in you know, your title, Church Hurts, and I'm really glad you have the word and, because when the church does what it's supposed to do, when we bear each other's burdens, and when we pray for each other, and when we um, are there for one another, and all those other good things that make church so beautiful, taking communion and remembering Jesus, and remembering that we're battle buddies. We're in a war here, against not flesh and blood, but angels and principalities and demons. And, we're supposed to be battle buddies, and we stop warring with each other. When you go through a crisis, I really feel like that's when you see the best of the body of Christ. Because I really believe I wouldn't be here. I wouldn't have the ministry that continued after that, if it were not for the beautiful, beautiful, and I'm going to get emotional, the body of Christ, the church, the real church. And they were from everywhere. It wasn't just my church. Like, friends and Christians from different places in the world were praying for me. I just know it. And I believe I see our ministry that has continued, and the ministry to these children as a continuation of their prayers, their faithfulness. Lenny's legacy, you know. So the worst day has included some of the richest blessings of my life.
When we were talking about doing the show, I said, I'm amazed I didn't remember to call you when my son got paralyzed, because the only people I could talk to were people who had lost children or people who had paralyzed children. And it just reminded me, oh, but I have my son. And you, the ministry you've had because of that, the ministry you've had because of your bulimia, the ministry you've had because of dealing with unfaithfulness. The reason I wanted to have you here was because from the outside, Jenna, you can look so perfect, and you are such a wonderful friend and such a model. But we talked about children. Reality is you have a ministry to adults because of your depth. I mean, you're really a deep person and much deeper theologian than you admit being, because you've studied all your life. You've worked at your spirituality. Talk to me about that. What's that mean, to work at your spirituality?
Well, you glitched for a second there, but I think I caught what you said. Um, I just have been hungry to know God, and I think you and I share that in that loss, because I had, years and years of walking with the Lord, and there were other tragedies as well. I lost a best friend in high school who committed suicide, and we were brand new Christians together. And there've been some other like illness things, and I lost my sister, and there've been some other things that, um, but walking with Jesus, and somewhere along the line, I got the really good advice to read the Word, and when you're in the Word and you realize what a treasure it is, and how He comforts and He speaks, and what would we do without what Jesus has given us, right? And we have this treasure. I really believe that because my roots were down there, and I had weathered a few storms already and just clung on. The sign in sign language for trust is this. And I feel like I had been through some of these already, that I was just doing this when Lenny passed away. And I was kind of like, if you're not who you say you are, I can't do this.
Right.
Almost out of desperation, I clung with all of my heart. Kind of like when it happened to your son, you clung to God. And because if we don't have Him, people often ask me, didn't you get mad at God? Weren't you angry? And I said, I wasn't. I was angry at myself for a time, but I feel like people prayed me out of that, because the shouldas and the couldas and the wouldas of life don't do anything.
Yep.
But I just knew that if God isn't who He is, there's really no hope. But in Him there is so much hope. He overcomes the world.
So, Jenna, we're going to have to wrap up, unfortunately. But before we go, would you pick up your guitar again and give us a song that you like to play with kids? Why do kids like you so much? Because you really, they do. It's just to see kids in front of you in a guitar is to see joy. And people need to go to JennaElira.com, because you can see a video of these kids all over the world participating in it. Can we have one? Choose what's your favorite one to see them do? I'm starting to want to sing, but
Okay, well,
I can't sing.
and for your listeners, all of our music is on YouTube, and actually, kids watch that from all over the world. And as a big surprise to me, God opened up those doors like all over the place. And one of my favorite moments in ministry with children, I don't know why they like me. I think I have a childlike faith. I really do. I think that's maybe a gift. And I believe these simple yet very profound truths about God with all of my heart. And so I think it's a combination of just, I really mean what I'm singing. I really like kids. Not everybody can say that, but I love them. They make me happy. They make me laugh. I love their innocence. And I think Ron makes our song sound really good. But this song I'm going to share with you, this is the first song that I wrote after my daughter passed away. And it took a little time. but it happened in a moment, and I pulled the van over on a rainy day, and I realized this was what I wanted to put into a song for kids. And it's called Rain or Pour. And it's really happy, like bump, 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 bump. You know, when they're singing it, it's got kind of that, um, what is that? What is that song? Uh, you can't hurry love, that kind of a feel, Phil Collins. But I'm going to play it for you this way. Whether it rains or whether it pours. Let me turn my guitar up a little bit more. There we go. Whether it rains or whether it pours, wherever I go, I will trust you, Lord, in the light of day or in the dark of night. I will trust you, Lord, with all my life. For my hope is where you are. For my hope is where you are. It's been a while. For my hope is where you are, Jesus. For my hope is where you are. Whether it rains or whether it pours, wherever I go, I will trust you, Lord, in the light of day or in the dark of night. I will trust you, Lord, with all my life. I will trust you, Lord, with all my life. Oh, I will trust you, Lord, with all my life. Sorry for the
Jana,
clams.
in just a minute, I'm going to ask you to kind of sing us out, but I wanted Jana here today because I can't tell her story without ending up crying. It's just so sad. It's so unjust. Some of those things which Jana has talked about here shouldn't have happened to a woman like this. I've seen people try to give her credit. Jana, you're so strong. Jana, you are such an example. Jana, I wish I could be like you. I wish I could be as gifted, as talented, as positive as you, Jana. If you ever meet Jana in person, you can get into the line that wants to affirm her, or the shorter line that tells her husband, Ron, how lucky he is. From our show today, I hope you know what you will hear back, and it's not going to be about Jana, and it's not going to be about Ron. Jana sold out to Jesus a long time ago. She will tell you about her Savior, who suffered far more than she ever thought about. Jana will talk to you about a refiner's fire. She will talk about the reality of evil and the greater truth of a loving God who's already written the last chapter. Somewhere in Jana's journey, she heard the words of Jesus, "Let the little children come unto me," in Matthew 19. Most of you may have heard that quote, but do you know the context? Jesus was talking about marriage, sex, and adultery. And then these people show up with kids wanting Jesus to pray over them. How awkward is this? The disciples, you know, Matthew, John, James, Andrew, all those names which adorn the fronts of churches with saint in front of them, those guys stopped these people. They rebuked them and their children from interrupting their wise leader. "Hold the phone," said Jesus. "What are you doing? Let the little children come unto me." But he didn't stop there. He said, "Don't hinder them," in case it was ambiguous what he was saying. And then Jesus tells us why. He doesn't always do that. God doesn't explain himself about many issues which we call mysteries, which will one day be revealed. But this time he did. Why? Why let the children go to Jesus? For the kingdom of heaven belongs to such as these. Seriously, children? They don't even know how to feed themselves or make money or put their shoes on right. They're annoying, unsophisticated, frustrating, four-legged creatures who never stop talking and running and laughing. "Yes," said Jesus, "those ones. And unless you become like them, you will never get into my kingdom. And that is undoubtedly worth a thought. For Church Hurts And, this is John Bash. Enjoy God today, won't you? Jenna, play us out a little bit, will you?
Day by day, I'm learning to love you. Day by day, I'm learning to serve you. You take my hand and never walk away as you change my heart. Day by day, I'm learning to love you. Day by day, I'm learning to serve you. You take our hands and never walk away as you change our hearts. Day by day, we're learning to love you. Day by day, we're learning to serve you. Day by day, we love you, Lord. Day by day.
Wow, and that's really how we do it. That's one for the books here. That's one to remember.
I'm sorry, Paul. I was trying to get you to get your screen off, so we didn't have the three screens.
Yeah,
up
I
on
did just. I
Facebook
was
Live.
trying to transition out of it, so I did. I got me out of it a little bit into it there.
No, you were up there on Facebook Live the whole time. Your face.
Oh, I was because I took my.
Yep.
I muted my. Oh, I'm sorry.
No, I guess you're not seeing the same screen I'm seeing, but it has all three of us.
Oh, and my YouTube I did. All right. Well, I apologize for that. I thought I had done it. I was
Now,
too
now
enraptured
put your
listening to
now
it.
put your face on, would you, Paul?
Put my face on here. All right. Let's find me.
See ya.
Let's see
Wait.
me here.
Yeah,
There
we
go.
want to see your face. Okay. So what do you think?
You want to
Paul?
see me
Here you
cry?
are.
Okay. All right. I get the agony now. I didn't get it going in. I didn't understand. What is surprising to me and everybody else, and you know this, is that you can still have joy after all that. Because that would not.
Hold on 1 second, Paul. I gotta close this door. Say that again.
Having listened to the story of your divorce
Did everybody freeze? No, go ahead.
and the divorce and the loss of your daughter, the fact that you can still find joy in God or anything, I wonder how many of us, I wonder if I would find joy there or if I would just be forever in a dark place. I'm reminded always, my wife.
You'd be forever in a dark place, Paul. There's the answer.
Yeah, I think I would. I think I would. I'm not sure. I'm not sure you pull out of that tailspin. I'm not sure you're spinning down that. You don't just stay in it. I am reminded of a story that from that. My wife had a cousin who had a little girl that she was holding her hand. She was about your daughter's age, about 4, and her daughter pulled away from her at the curb, restless. Let me go, mommy. And ran into traffic in front of her, killed. And she's holding her hand, and the kid pulls her hand out. And for the rest of her life, she blamed herself. Why couldn't I have held on? Not why did the kid pull away? Why wasn't I strong enough to hold on and get choked up thinking about it? And her husband blamed her for that too, and they divorced shortly after, and he could never forgive her. It's your fault. You couldn't hold on. And it ruined her life. I mean, she never recovered from that.
That will destroy you.
Yeah.
That will destroy you. Well,
Now, you didn't have a direct
did you hear that
relationship
part where I
like
was
that.
saying the show doesn't?
You're cutting out a
Say
little
that-
bit
I'm sorry?
occasionally. You cut out a little bit occasionally. That was the only
I'm
bad thing
sorry.
about this whole thing here.
Did we hear the part with what?
We have to ask the question again.
About kind of other people praying for me to not blame myself.
Yeah, I did, but because
Because I
I
really
think,
do feel like a lot of people knew I would do that because I was driving the car
mm,
and there was really a tunnel, a funnel I was going down of, oh, why couldn't I have stopped? Why didn't I stop to,
yeah,
tie my shoe or why? And that will destroy people. It really
yeah.
will. I mean,
Go ahead.
clearly it wasn't that woman's. This was your sister? A
My
friend of hers? Who was
wife's
this?
cousin, when she was little, this happened.
Your wife's cousin.
Wife's cousin, and she, it's a story that lives in her family because it was just it. That was the end of everyone's life. The husband, the daughter, the mother. Nobody recovered. Nobody recovered. There was no happy ending for
so
any
sorry.
any of them. You know.
As I say, Jan is removed as it could be. When my son got paralyzed, he was out in Lake Havasu with his girlfriend and their parents and dove off a boat.
Right.
I'm in Laguna Beach. I still somehow have blamed myself. You know,
Yeah.
and
You're the
and I know
parent. You're supposed to
he
be
even-
there.
What's that?
You're supposed to be there. You know. it's the
Exactly.
parent.
I'm the father. I mean, that's my job. I'm supposed to protect.
Right.
You know, 29 years old, and I'm still. And then the other day, I had a little bump under my skin or something, and I was talking to my daughter about it. I said it feels kind of like Johnny because Johnny has a bunch of these little bumps that he has to get removed years ago, and she said, you may not know, but he had a doctor's appointment to get those removed, but it conflicted with the vacation, so he canceled the doctor's appointment. And she just says, I wish he had kept the doctor's appointment. But
Yeah.
how removed? You're in the car, versus me being a state away. And I'm still finding a way to blame myself, let alone being in the car and all. And how cool, though, that you got it into your head. It's not where it's at. That's a blessing from God itself that's huge.
I don't know that
Yeah, and it isn't that every once in a while I have gone back there. But
Oh, sure.
go ahead, Paul.
I was going to say, I don't know. I don't think any of us know until we're faced with those moments how we will react. We think we know, but we hope we're never tested. What's the line? Take this cup from me or something. As Jesus is getting ready to get crucified. Hey, do we really have to go through this? You're an inspiration to hear you, not just to hear you tell the story, which is hard enough, but to say that you went on and found joy again in a world that many of us would never see joyful again.
And think about how sad, yeah, I'm really sorry for those stories because I really do see that regret and if I only would have, if I only could have, if I only should have, is just the devil's territory. I mean, I mean that with all my heart. Like he just loves to ruin people with that. And I know people, I had enough strong believers around me to know that was where I would go, that there's power in prayer, right? Gosh, there's so much more I wanted to talk about, John. But I know they were praying fervently, against me getting wrecked like that, and
And I know
and when I look at my life since,
Yeah, keep going.
okay, when I look at my life since, and all these children who I've had the opportunity to minister, mothers who have lost children who I've been able to come alongside, and just be kind of those. I've heard it described like when you're running a race and you just watch the feet in front of you, just to get through, you just keep watching the feet. I've been able to be that for other mothers who've lost children. Just, okay, you're still living, you've taken a shower, you're still okay. Just being that person to kind of come alongside. When I look at where that music has gone and how many children who've been blessed, what if I had just said, and just chosen to drink my life away or whatever? That would have been such a loss. So I just really, I don't know. I praise God. I thank him.
Well, either one of those stories,
That maybe I had enough.
the dramatic story of you sharing about your husband, he was a minister and he came home and told you all this and said, we're done and I'm out. And
Oh, she didn't even get into the how
Happens too
dirty it
much.
was. It was dirty. Yeah, it was dirty. I mean, seriously, the man was.
A man of God is supposed to treat him
Yeah.
differently. Anyway, so either one of those could have been, as Buddy Holly's story says, the day the music died.
Yeah.
Yeah, in AA,
But
I've read it
no.
on the show before, but yeah, there's this reading called Acceptance, and basically it just goes on and on and on, basically saying until I accept the things in life for the way they are, until I accept it, and
I can't
I
accept the
can't
minor
move on.
transaction. I can't. I haven't had a tragedy like that. Either one of those tragedies. I can't accept little tragedy. I'm still worrying about things that happened 20 years ago that I have trouble accepting. Why did that happen? Why didn't I get this? Or why did that have to happen to me this way or something? And I'm not talking about life and death tragedies. So
Well, but for me, theologically, where I
I can only
finally
attribute it to Jesus. I don't
Yeah.
know where you're at, Paul, with Jesus, but if it wasn't for Jesus, I don't know.
I thought I'm in a good place
In a
with
mental
Jesus,
hospital or
but
drive
I
my
don't.
life
I
away
don't
or
know that I
something.
have that faith. I have the faith of a mustard seed. You have the faith of a mountain here. I don't know that I have that. I wish I did. I hope I do.
No.
Maybe I do, but
That's all you need. That's
the,
and the faith of a child. I loved your so true. He calls us to be like children. You know,
and literally says you don't get
I
into
loved
the
what you
kingdom
said. But
unless
that's
you
all you
want.
need, Paul, is a mustard seed.
yeah, right.
I mean, the fact though that it hit me in a new way as I was preparing for the show. I mean, it was you don't even get in. I'm not saying, hey, isn't that cute and aren't they a good example? And no, I'm saying unless you become like them, you don't get in.
Right.
I mean, it was an adamant statement. It was like, you got to be like them. The same way with the Nicodemus. We all know he says you got to be born again. Nicodemus like, what the heck? Go back into my mother's womb. But there's all these references to you really got to get there. And where I was going with the acceptance is that while it's a cute saying and it's said really well, it's basically like until I'm ready to accept all the things in my life the way they've happened and the way things are, I don't have a chance. Theologically, I just want to say until I'm ready to say God is really sovereign and that's playing out in my life, and that means that what happens today is exactly what's supposed to happen. And what happened yesterday is supposed to be exactly what was supposed. Until I accept it, let God be God.
But faith is never clear until it's tested, I guess. And none of us ever want to face those tests. You don't know what you're going. You think you're going to believe. You think you're strong. You think you think. But when you are forced to act, boy, that's a different. It's like men going into combat. They say, I'm going to be brave, and the strongest men get down and run, and the weakest men get up and jump on the grenade to save everybody. You never know how you're going to face these things, I think, until you hope that if you're ever tested, you'll react like you did. You're an inspiration to all of us. I'll give you one more inspirational story since we don't leave on a down note. Right after I started this station, we had a community show about Ladera Ranch. It was the local paper was sponsoring it. And they would bring in people from Ladera Ranch, all sorts of different ways of life. And I don't know where you live, but it's an affluent area and nice area and kind of idyllic, Leave It to Beaver community, particularly when it started. And there was a woman there that they brought in. I'll never forget this. Just like I'll never forget your story, I'll never forget her story either. And like you, she was a woman of deep faith. And she was driving home with her two twins who were about your daughter's age, about 4, I think. And she was in the minivan, Mom, and she's driving home. She got off at Crown Valley, off the freeway, and stopped, waiting to turn left to go over to Ladera Ranch.
I know this story.
Yeah, and a
Go
tractor
ahead.
trailer truck hit her from behind and killed the 2 children instantly and put her in a car. So she wakes up she doesn't even know to this day doesn't know what happened. All she knows is she was hit, and she woke up in a hospital. Where am I? And immediately, where are my children? They're not here. They didn't make it. And so you can imagine. So she goes through all these things, and she and her husband decide a year or two later. First of all, they sued the state, and you can't all this stuff because they showed that there were lots of accidents there. This wasn't the first, and they were able to change the lane, do all this stuff. So she was able to accomplish something out of it. And at some point, she said, "Let's try again." And her husband's like, "I don't think I want to go have children again here. I'm going to be looking at them every 5 minutes like, is this going to happen?" I couldn't take it again. And they did. They prayed and they did. And she gave birth to twins again. What are the odds? And I thought, and so
I remember that story well.
Now, what you don't know, this is the part of the story. It was written up in the Orange County Register and a few other places, and they had fundraisers for in the community and whatnot. So here's my little contribution to the story. So I told her, I said, the way she told that so calmly, so clearly, so forcefully, I said, you should share that with somebody. I said, you should be on Oprah Winfrey. She said, well, oddly enough, this is just as Oprah Winfrey's show was fading away. And she said, oddly enough, we've tried, but we can't get to anybody. I said, I know somebody. We'll send you to somebody. And they took the audio. I won't say we were the sole source of it. I'm over-exaggerating. She had a connection already, but we told her to take the content and send it back. And they did. And they got her on the Oprah Winfrey show. She told that, and they licensed that show from us. They called us. I still have it somewhere, a plaque here. Oprah Winfrey show licensing the use of. Can we put this in there? And I said, sure, yeah. And so they used part of our interview in their website, promoting it and everything else here. So the unthinkable, just because she had an interview, she took that content and she leveraged it to a bigger purpose.
How do you know it, Jana?
Well, I think I didn't meet with her, but I sent her a letter, and didn't she go on to have a set of twins?
Yeah, so I'm saying second child, so they had another set of twins, which was the unbelievable part. And I said, would you, I can't help but think, are these just your replacements? Do you forever look at them as those two, or do you look at them as their own two? You know, are they just God giving you back the two you lost, or are they two new children that you have to look at and treat differently? I don't know.
Well,
and she probably said, I mean, God is such a mystery. Like, and I really wish I could redo this over again because of all the glitches and everything.
Yeah, there really were a lot of glitches.
There were a lot of glitches.
Yeah. I think that
Should we try it again?
I think that's the Wi-Fi at your.
Well, I'm out of time today, but you could certainly do it
house.
for another time here. Yeah, you definitely had Wi-Fi issues because
Want to try it again at a different time?
I'm tempted to, just because I love the content and I think we'd be more comfortable. There were enough glitches, even with me. I was distracted at first. I was trying to say to Paul, this is on Facebook Live, and there's 3 screens up there. It's better if there's just 2. And we got to make sure, because I text you. I must be texting the wrong number because I don't see any returns.
Oh, text. I don't. Who looks at text? I have my phone in another room
but
here.
Somehow during the show, I need to be able to say, like, I just wanted to say, get your mugshot off the screen so people can see how beautiful Jana is.
Yeah.
Anyway, let me just do this, Jana. Here's something since we're I want to be positive here. Can you see this? Whoops. Wait a second.
I see a child's picture.
Okay, just a second. Let me do this again. This is fresh. This is yesterday. I get this. Okay. This is first
your
time.
grandbaby?
This is first time ever on her own, on her legs.
Wow.
Go, Coop, go! Good job, sweetie.
Oh.
Good job. Come on.
Oh.
Look at that.
Isn't that fun?
Go, girl, go.
All right,
go,
I'm gonna
girl.
speed
Oh,
up.
she's so happy with herself.
Come on.
It's such a big deal when they start walking.
It sure is.
And Caitlin is
Such
such
a
an
big-
affirming mom, and it is so. I didn't realize how healing it was for me, because when Vonnie had Caitlin was just filled with life, and Vonnie was so depressed, and children was so hard for her. And to see Caitlin, it's like she is a toy. I mean, that little girl is my daughter's playmate.
Oh,
I mean,
yeah.
my daughter's such a good mom, and she's so happy. And Bonnie just struggled seriously with unipolar depression. It's so fun to see a mom who really loves having her kids around instead of exhausted by them. You know,
What I
Bonnie
thought,
lo-
what I thought as I look at that is how unstoppable children are, particularly at that age. I don't care how many
Yeah.
times you fall or fail or whatever, they're going, and they're going to
Yeah.
get there. And they don't quit and give up and whatever. And it's later on, we fall and fail so easily, so easily.
Do you guys have a second? Can I show you something on my phone?
Sure.
Sure.
So there is a mom. I mean, this is another amazing story. She had a surprise triplets, and they all had cerebral palsy.
Oh,
But two of them you can barely tell. But Megan, here I'm going to show you. She will be in a wheelchair, but she's all there, right?
right.
And she's I've been singing with her at Saddleback and different places, for many, many years. So now she's probably about 20, 26, 27, and she was at a disabilities
Expo.
summit, and so she's singing her brains out here. One of my songs called "Everybody Everywhere." That
You're freezing again. Okay.
Just barely. It's
Oh.
hard
Just
to see.
barely.
It's
Yeah, hard to
see.
hear. Yeah, you're freezing on us here.
wait till it gets right to.
Unfortunately, we can't hear it because you're freezing. The screen is freezing on us.
Yeah, you
Right.
get two.
Right.
No, you're frozen.
Well,
too
she's
much.
just screaming, "Jesus, Jesus is alive," and it was so you could tell that the who she was singing for were so moved. Even though it sounds like this mess, and this, John, we could have spent hours on like what worship is. Am I totally freezing?
Yeah, I
But just sometimes worship.
What strikes me is listening to the show. When John came in, I was like, I don't know about this show. We do business shows. This is not our normal production here. And he's going to talk about church hurts. Okay, so we're going to have an endless series of people talking about, I'm Catholic, priests who were abusive, ministers who drove you out, ministers who turned out to be rats, all the horrible things that drive people from the church and how they've been hurt and how the church has hurt them. I get it. That's in the news everywhere. But it's the and. Okay, so what else? And what else you got? I get it. It can be hurtful. And he's brought forth a procession of people who have all been hurt, who all start off like you did, Jana, happy in this, oh, hi, how are you, and everything. And they all seem like it got it all together. And then, oh, but my son was paralyzed. Oh, but my daughter died. Oh, but something horrible happened here. And it's like, wow. And that's when it's like, you can just hear the audience go, oh, this is going to get real. This isn't just the happy Christians. There's only two images I ever hear: the happy Christians singing or the angry Christians who left. I never hear the hurt Christians who persevered and go on. I hear the happy Christians who've never had any problems. It's just happy life. You can be just like us. We live the Stepford wives. We're the Stepford lives. Nothing ever happens. Everything is easy. Everything comes our way because we believe in Jesus. Or the other ones, baloney. The church is what screwed me over. The church is the problem. Down with boo church, yay church, and in between, real church. I never hear real church.
well, and even with Jana, I have to work.
Good for John, right?
Yeah.
But
right.
I have to work with Jana. I mean, because Jana loves to jump to the answer, and I want to slow down a little bit because there's power in the stories. As my illustration, that I use, I mentioned to Jana, the Bible doesn't say, David, did some bad things and then he wrote the Psalms.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
I mean,
right.
we know the stories, the people that died as a result of his sin, and what can happen with lust gone amok. And I even, because now I do the aging curmudgeon thing, you got to be careful with old preachers, because old preachers don't have the lust running in their veins the way they used to. And they can be self-righteous because they don't have the drives and the passions of the youth.
Right.
And And I heard Chuck Colson address this years ago. Somebody said, hey, Chuck, he's on a radio show. How can we pray for you? And he's like, well, my schedule is really a challenge. I just have a lot of requests. And he said, wait. He's like, let me stop. He said, I don't want to belittle the issues of lust and of so forth. He said, but I'm older. I'm on the other side of that.
Yeah,
so those
right.
of you who are younger, I get it. But seriously, my schedule is an issue. So if you really want to pray for my schedule. But I think that pausing to really tell the stories that people relate to and say, no, it really hurt, before saying, and Jesus was so good and provided the answer. Let's make it vivid. Yeah, I was really
That doesn't help me. If you just say, and I don't wish to belittle what you're saying, I'm good with Jesus and Jesus helped me. But that sounds to most of us so, but that's it?
Typical Catholic. Jesus is just all right with me. Give me the wafer and let me get out of
That's
here.
it. And I'll give you a different way to look at it. We have business people come in here all the time, and they tell the business success story. And it always goes like this. I had an idea. I wrote it on a napkin. I raised $1 million, and now I'm worth $1 billion. What? You can't do that? I would, and then they always kind of go, "Oh shucks, it was easy, and it was like I was lucky, and yeah, there was a few challenges along the way, but it was pretty simple. I just came up with an idea, poof, it came to me, and here I'm worth $1 million, and I'm supposed to learn from that. Then all I learn is I'm an idiot.
Exactly. It's not relatable.
Yeah. So when you tell me, when you just jump to the thing, what'd you say about David? He had a few problems, and then he wrote the Psalms. It's like if you belittle the struggle. A movie isn't about the beginning and the end. I had a problem, and here it is, ta-da! And I found the magic ring, or I made it to the top, or I made it happy life. It's the struggle. The story is about conflict. We want to know the conflict in the story, but nobody wants to tell us the conflict in the story. They want to jump from the problem to the solution. Mm-hmm. Problem, Jesus. Problem, raised $1 million. Well, you got to get me into I'm the storyteller. You get me into the weeds of the story, and I'll understand it. I'll believe it. I'll be inspired by it. I'll follow it. It's the story. It's the journey. That's everything, not the conclusion.
Okay,
Yeah.
let's be pragmatic.
Yes,
I do think the glitch is at the
it's
Wi-Fi
a bandwidth.
end
Yeah, it's a
at
Wi-Fi.
your house, Jana. I think that's a lot
Yeah.
of it.
It's probably because I'm sorry. It isn't a good feed, but the last few Zooms I've done have gone well. But I can move downstairs close to the router, and we can try it again some other
gonna say-
time. I know today you probably can't.
Yeah, if you hardwired it, because that's what I was playing with, thinking it was mine. I was plugging and unplugging mine. If you
Hardware is
hardwire it
always
to the
better.
router, I don't think
No
it's
Wi-Fi
good.
matches what you can get when you plug it in with a wire. No Wi-Fi matches that, and because Wi-Fi has too
I
many
don't even know
interferences.
how to do that.
You just get that Ethernet cord, and you go from. You're in a computer. You're in a laptop.
Jana, this plugs into your
Yeah.
router.
Yeah.
This Ethernet cord is that's
The blue one?
the big phone cord thing. I have an adapter for the Mac.
Right.
It just plugs straight from the router into your computer.
10 times improvement to whatever you do.
Okay. Okay.
Everybody
Well, why
wants the
don't-
convenience
Can I
of
go
Wi-Fi.
buy one of those, and can we try this again?
Yeah, they're like $5 at Best Buy or something. It's
In
another-
Amazon, Best Buy, I think. Yeah, I got mine. Or Amazon. It just
Amazon.
takes 2 seconds to. And Ron will know which one. Depends what kind of computer you have. You have a Mac, I assume.
Mac, an iBook.
Yeah. So depending
Yeah.
on which one, you'll need to get this adapter, which is more expensive than the cord.
Right, because it takes us from that C to an Ethernet, right?
Yeah.
But the adapter is $20, but the cord is $5. And everybody wants the convenience of Wi-Fi. Wi-Fi sucks. It does not. Too many things interfere with it. The walls and the things. How many devices are using it at the same time? All that stuff.
Her husband's a sound engineer. She
plug
knows
it in.
why wired is better, right?
Wired is better.
Wired is always better.
Well, yeah, but I'm not a very good listener. But we don't
Listen to this.
I
Wired
don't
is
think we
better.
have- I'll have to go buy that. I don't think we have that.
No, I
Wired
had
is
to go buy it. I mean, I just ordered
Yeah,
it. on
wired
Am-
is better.
Amazon.
Wired is better.
Mine, if I actually can't show you, it's like I want to show you. How can I show you when it's right here? But I have a big, long cord. I own, and I go get it for the show.
Yeah.
Just because so I can put my computer.
And where is your router? I think our router is like,
Yeah, well, my
Where's your actual
router's
router?
my router's in a closet down at the end of the hallway. So I got like a 50-foot cord, but it's
we have a long,
yeah.
okay.
But I don't. If I had a setup where I'm
All right.
closer to the router. But in any case, let me just see how it is, because I couldn't tell how much what I was seeing. We'll see on the tape.
There was a
then-
lot of it there, and the problem is it distracts from the story because you're paying more attention to
Yes.
the breaks than you are. You lose the continuity of the story when you get. I mean, some of those you can take out, but there was a lot of them.
Yeah.
So should
And-
we redo it?
I
When-
I say you should redo it, but when you get a wired connection.
she get. It's
Right.
all, I wanted to say it's also she can just come down to the studio, because Jana's one person who's local. But since
could-
we're not doing COVID,
we could
or
do
since
that,
COVID's
too.
not going away.
Yeah, we could actually mic you in here, and then we could put a little, like you're in a recording studio. We could put a little mic for your guitar.
You're
up
going to
too.
clean it up. I'm tired of looking at this ugly,
All this
messy
stuff?
studio. It's supposed to be. It's supposed to be beautiful.
What is all that
What
stuff?
is all this junk? The rest of it looks good. This is the worst
You
shot
need
of the
what I
studio.
have.
Yeah, right, exactly. This is the worst shot of the studio. The rest of it looks pretty. The rest of it is not too bad.
It's still looking junky. It's supposed to have like wood walls, and
I know.
let my son
Well-
design it for you.
Because the problem was this was supposed to be a storage area that nobody ever saw. And then I realized when I put everything here, that's the only thing everybody sees. They don't see all the rest of the big, beautiful studio. They just see the storage unit back there. So I've got to figure out a way to block that. And
Yeah, you do. Yeah, you do.
I
Well,
agree.
this thing that I have.
Little
Yeah, that's
bamboo.
perfect.
Yeah, right.
Exactly.
Okay. Well, you go wired, and I'll go figure out how to block this.
And the point on some of what we want to do, Paul, is for the intros. I just noticed some of the ones that are recording. I was listening to it after I published it, and I went, "Oh my gosh, it's just it's not complete." It was taken right off the recording, obviously from here, where like when I do it, I just put in the raw. The raw footage, like when I go up on YouTube, I just put the YouTube intro and slice it in. So when we have those on that, I think, well, we're going to figure out how to get the beginning and the intros so that
Many
either we
ways
add
to
them
do it.
afterwards.
Many ways to do it. Set a time, and we'll work it out, and we'll play with some different options here.
Cool. Jana, thank you so much.
Thank you for
I think-
sharing this story. Thank you for telling the story, and thank you for willing to come back and clean it up, because that's a powerful story you tell. Very powerful story.
Oh, it's
your story.
well, it's
your
a
story.
joy and an honor, and it went too fast.
Everybody says that.
the
Everybody
time
thinks
flew,
half hour is a
so-
long time until they do it.
Yeah, and ours probably went 35, 40 minutes.
Right.
It does, and I've had people say, "Oh, I wish we went longer," and that's like exactly what you want them to say.
Exactly. Always leave them laughing. Always leave them wanting more.
We can always do another show of on another subject later on, but I like Paul's discipline of forcing me into the 30-minute frame.
Yep. Okay.
Anyway,
Yeah.
hey,
Cool.
say hello to Ron for me.
I will. He said to say hi to you. He's actually down at doing a bunch of stuff at church for a sound stuff down there
And where's the church? Are you
this
at,
morning, or he would have popped his head in. here.
where are you
We
worship?
have a
Go ahead.
we have a very weird existence. My husband works at a church in San Diego and San Clemente, and I attend a church in Santa Ana. So it's kind of a weird existence that we have, because he works on the weekends, and I was tired of just like sitting there behind all of his gear.
Right.
So I got involved in a really cool church in Santa Ana that I'm really excited about. So
Okay. Well, I hope your YouTube channel does well. I hope you have lots of followers, and I hope you get this message out to lots of people here.
well, you know what? And once we clean this up, I was going to ask if it's okay with you guys
Oh,
if I
yeah.
post it
Oh,
on
yeah.
my
That's the
website,
power of
and
this.
I
Is
can-
the power of this isn't just what John does with it; it's what we do with it as a station, and then it's mostly what the guests do with it. If the guests push it out, it gets a much bigger audience than if it's people still tend to think of this as just traditional media. I hope somebody heard it. Hope somebody will call me. Well, what are you going to do with it? Well, I'm not going to do anything with it. It's your show. No, it's your content. You get a copy, you can push. It's a three-legged stool. It's what the guest pushes out, what the host pushes out, and what we as a station push out. And all three of us collectively find an audience for this.
Okay, because I'll be happy to do that. Once we fix it all. So that'd
Yeah.
be great.
Well, unfortunately,
It
glitches
was a joy
are,
to work with you, Paul.
Well, thank you. The pleasure's all mine. John brings in the most inspirational stories here, starting with his own story, and then the others that he brings
Right?
on, and they all start with this. Okay, here's just another happy Christian going to tell me about how happy in Jesus and everything's happy, nothing bad ever happens, and then they say, "Oh, and by the way, this happened." And you're like,
Oh,
"Ooh."
Jana. Hey, Jan, I just thought the part of the story, you'll know the connection. It was so before, because you, okay, yeah. Charlie Hedges has a show on here. Charlie Hedges asked me to be
Yes.
a guest.
Oh, she knows
Charlie
Charlie. Yeah.
had left well before I got to South Coast.
Right.
But he's the one who knew Paul, and that's how I got connected to
He
Paul.
does a
is
show
through
on our
Charlie
station.
Hedges.
Yeah, right. Called-
Okay, somehow after watching your podcast, I don't know whether it like circled around and I watched I listened to something that Charlie did. So somehow I knew that you guys were connected. Okay.
Charlie
Well,
does
it
a
was
show
years
called The
later,
Next
and I won't tell you
Chapter.
how we met up again, but he was before me. I didn't know him. He had like 2
Oh.
years before me. I think Todd had part of them, like Focus 20 or something. Did Todd do some of that? I don't remember.
He did college and then the Focus 20.
Yeah, did the Focus 20. So it was a little bit over that there, and then Charlie had some of that. So that's how connected this is, Paul, that you
Wow.
didn't even know.
I didn't know that.
Is Charlie was on the staff at the same time Janet's husband was.
Charlie came to me. I do a meetup group for podcasters, and he was trying to do it himself and was struggling. And I said, well, we have a studio, and we do charge, and here's how we do it. We don't normally just, we're doing more like big business shows. And he said, no, I want to really explore this next chapter. And for him, I think it was kind of his own, to start off his own therapy. Okay, now what? I'm sort of semi-retired, and I have, the ability to sort of figure out I have lots of choices. I'm bored. I got nothing to do. There's no purpose in life. What is the next chapter? Well, yippee, we're going to live to be 90. Now what? What are we going to do? And so he started exploring this, and out of the show, he started interviewing people who've made life changes and done different things, and he got very philosophical about it and all these things he likes doing. And he brought John on as a guest once, and he also met these people that build water systems in Africa, wells in Africa, wells of
Cool.
life. And now he became very involved in it. He's like a volunteer vice president of the organization.
On the
And
board, yeah.
on the board, goes to Africa. And in many ways, he found his own next chapter by just having people come in and say, what do you got? What are you doing? How are you handling this?
That's so cool. I'm super happy for him.
Right.
That's really cool.
So you told Paul where your church is because the church Jana goes to would be really appropriate for your daughter, Paul.
Boy, I can't get my daughter to go to church anymore. She's one of those that, Dad, I don't even want to talk about it. Well, what's wrong with church?
What does she like?
The point is, Paul usually brings up his daughter because that's what's closest to his heart.
Right.
And she's married to a Mexican and living in downtown Santa Ana along with his granddaughter. And Jana's church is Santa Ana. It's more of Asian than I don't know how much Hispanic do you have there, Jana?
I'd say about, I'm going to guess 70% Asian, 10% Hispanic, or maybe 20% Hispanic and 10% white.
My story is real quick.
So-
I'm a good Irish Catholic who never had any children, never thought about it too much, and then went to Mass one day, and they had these people come in and talk about all the kids in foster care who are never going to find a home. And I said to my wife, we should do that. And she had been married previously and had a grown daughter. And she's like, well, we could have talked about this 20 years ago when we could have had children or something. Why did you keep putting it off? I don't know. I'm an aging, and my clock is running out, and I suddenly feel I'm in my 40s. We got to do something. And so we went through all this thing and prayed and thought about it and everything. And it became what was called foster adopt. So we went into the foster
Right.
care and then adopted her out of it. She was 11, and she was from Mexico. She was brought here illegally. Everybody rails about illegals. I adopted one, and all the struggles that went with that. And then I didn't know she was going to go find another poor Hispanic boy someday and fall in love with. Well, why didn't I think this tribalism would continue? But there she did. And so they live in Santa Ana with my 2 grandsons, not my granddaughter, but my 2 grandsons now. And I brought her into the church, and we sent her to Catholic catechism and everything. And I thought she was very into it, but he's not. And the minute they got together, she dropped. And I don't know that she stopped believing. She just stopped thinking about it. And I think she's like so many millennials. It's not a question of whether I believe or I don't believe. Who cares? You might as well be talking to me about the 11th dimension. Maybe it exists, maybe it doesn't. Who cares? It's the who cares.
What a shame. Yeah.
Yeah.
She's not alone, that's for sure.
Yeah.
That's what the research is showing, that the millennials are just, they got disillusioned with it also. And
It's not even, what else you got? I don't even want to talk about it. It's not that I hate, it's not that I was angry at it or I don't believe it. I don't see the relevance. Why talk about something that seems so removed from my life here? It has nothing to do with my life.
Well, there is a lot of cool things happening with the millennials and Gen Zs, and if ever we meet together, I do think she would like it, and her kids would like it.
Yeah.
Because the kids ministry there's plenty of Hispanic kids, and I get to I'm part of the kids ministry there at New Sun.
Right.
But if we ever start meeting together, it's just a very diverse and really relevant place.
Right.
I don't know where she's at politically, but it's very liberal.
It's young too.
Yeah,
Pardon?
she's
Very young.
she's 29 now, and
Yeah.
she's at that
Yeah.
phase. Dad, I can't talk
That's
about
where the church is young, is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Compared to most churches,
Yeah.
it's pretty
Yeah.
young.
She's at
Very
that
young.
place where she's like, Dad, I can't talk about religion or tomorrow. I got diapers I got to change. I got other,
right.
we'll talk about that someday, Dad. But right now, I got this. I got to go, warm the bottle. I got something. I got an immediate need. Don't talk to me
Right.
about the future and God and forever. That's
Tyranny of the urgent. But I'll tell you what,
Yeah.
those kids might start asking questions, and they might be what brings her back to.
Well, we take the grandchildren because we watch them most weekends to give her some free, because she works a lot of weekends. She works for Home Goods. And so in retail, she has to work a lot of weekends. And her husband works at a bank, and he likes working on Saturdays too. So we generally watch them on the weekend, keep them overnight. So they're with us every Saturday and Sunday, and we're good Irish Catholics, so we drag them to Mass here. And I don't know if they get it or don't get it or want it or don't want it, but they go with us.
Hey, Paul, that'll help you in terms of acceptance. Acceptance in life for your comfort is you just need to realize there's no such thing as a good Irish Catholic.
Well, they go together. Irish Catholic. It's
I know. Why do they always say that? Good Irish Catholic. Why is
that's
that a thing?
That's what I was brought up. You're a good Irish Catholic. If you check those
You
three
gotta say it, 'cause
boxes,
no one else can say it for you. No one's going to say, "Oh, they're Irish Catholic and they're good." No.
that's all you have to say, and it says it all. I'm a good Irish Catholic. That's it.
That is true. All right, guys.
All right.
Have a good one.
All right,
And
thanks.
Okay, let me know when.
Yeah.
We'll talk.
We'll talk.
Okay. All right.
Thank you.
God
Bye.
bless you guys. Have a
All
great
right,
day.
Bye.
Oh, Paul,
Yeah.
I should tell you in-house stuff. I'm moving. You can hear this, Janet. I'm moving all the website over to. I'm getting off of Hype Totally. John's going to redo it on a different platform,
Good.
and he's thrilled about it.
Good.
So
Good.
you probably ought to at some point give him a call and say to do yours.
Oh, well, absolutely. Here. But I got things I got to do right now. It's the urgency. I can't fix things. I got a problem right now.
Yeah.
Right?
Okay.
All right, guys. Have a great weekend.
right,
Thanks
bye.
again, Jana.
Thank you.